Have you ever walked into a place and felt within seconds that you weren't welcome, even without anyone saying a single word? Have you ever noticed those looks that judge before they know you, that decide who you are before you even open your mouth? Well, that's exactly how this story begins, and what you're about to discover may surprise you more than you imagine. Imagine a luxurious office, one that exudes power in every detail. Polished marble floors, glass walls reflecting the entire city, expensive paintings hanging like silent trophies, an environment where everyone speaks softly but thinks loudly, where money dictates invisible rules and status defines who deserves respect and who doesn't even deserve attention. It is in this setting that everything happens. The doors open and she enters, a black woman, with a firm posture, calm steps, dressed simply, elegantly without exaggeration. Nothing flashy, nothing that screams wealth, nothing that catches the eye of those accustomed to measuring worth by the suit, the watch on the wrist, or the famous surname. And perhaps that is precisely why, in seconds, eyes turn to her, not with curiosity but with judgment. Have you ever been through this? That feeling of being scrutinized from head to toe, as if you were out of place, at the wrong time, among the wrong people. Some whisper, others simply look away, as if her presence were a silent nuisance in that corporate temple. No one stands up. No one asks who she is. No one imagines, not for a second, that this woman wields an authority that will shake everything up in there. The atmosphere is one of absolute superiority. There, power has a name, a title, and a billion-dollar bank account. And at the center of this universe is him, the man accustomed to being obeyed, admired, feared. A billionaire who believes the world works exactly as he dictates. For him, people are quickly classified, useful or disposable, important or invisible. And at that moment, the decision seems obvious. The woman walks through the office feeling the weight of prejudice in the air. It's not explicit, it's not said in words, yet. But it's in the gestures, the ironic smiles, the way no one offers help, as if she had crossed an invisible boundary, a space that in the minds of many wasn't made for someone like her. Stay with me until the end, because every detail of this moment matters. She stops, looks around, and remains silent. She doesn't justify herself. She doesn't ask permission. She doesn't try to prove anything, and this silence, which to some seems like weakness, hides something far more powerful. Because while everyone there thinks they know exactly who she is, the truth is about to turn everything upside down. What no one realizes is that this discreet entrance is unusual, that the attentive gaze isn't one of insecurity, but of someone assessing the situation, that the calmness isn't submission, but control. Every second passes fraught with tension, as if the entire environment were on the verge of an invisible collapse. And then, when the first comment pierces the air, when respect finally breaks down aloud, when humiliation begins to take shape before everyone, the story ceases to be just about an office, a billionaire, or a woman judged by her appearance. It transforms into something much bigger, because sometimes the biggest mistake someone can make is thinking they know exactly who they're dealing with, and what comes next will prove it in a way that no one in that office could have predicted. And perhaps the most powerful aspect of this story isn't just what's about to happen inside, but how much it resonates beyond those glass walls. Because, as you follow every detail of this scene, it's almost impossible not to remember similar situations from your own life. Moments when someone was underestimated, silenced, diminished, or perhaps moments when you yourself felt the weight of not being seen as you truly are. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. Sometimes sharing an experience creates invisible bridges between people who don't even know each other. This exchange is important because stories like this are not just entertainment. They carry real reflections that continue to resonate long after the video ends. When you comment, you're not just talking to me. You're talking to other people who have also gone through something similar and who often find strength precisely in these shared words. Your voice here matters more than you imagine, and if, as this narrative unfolds, you feel your heart tighten, your indignation grow, or that feeling of "this needs to be said," consider liking the video. This simple gesture helps the story reach more people who may need to hear exactly this message today. People who still believe that appearance defines worth, or who have already been hurt by this kind of silent judgment. If you find that this type of content captivates you, makes you reflect, and stays with you beyond the screen, subscribing to the channel is a way to walk alongside us. It's saying without words that you want to continue being part of this space where exciting stories, plot twists, and poetic justice find those willing to feel, think, and see beyond the surface. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. People who may never have heard someone tell it this way before. Meanwhile, inside that office, the atmosphere remains heavy. The tension doesn't lessen. On the contrary, something invisible seems to move between glances, held breaths, and hurried thoughts. Each second brings everyone closer to a point of no return, and the silence that hangs in the air isn't empty. It's a premonition, because when the truth finally begins to reveal itself, nothing there, not positions, not fortunes, not inflated egos, will remain the same. And it is precisely there that this story begins to show its true power. The first sound that breaks the heavy silence isn't an immediate scream, but a short laugh laden with contempt. The billionaire leans slightly in his chair, crosses his arms, and observes the woman as if she were an administrative error someone forgot to correct. His tone changes, grows louder, gains an audience. He doesn't just speak to her, he speaks to everyone around, as if needing to reaffirm his power. He questions what she's doing there, suggests she's on the wrong floor, mocks her simple clothes, her restrained manner, her lack of appropriate appearance for an environment of that level. Every word is calculated to diminish, to expose, to mark territory. Some people look away, others offer awkward smiles, as if that public humiliation were just another acceptable corporate spectacle. No one intervenes, no one interrupts. It's as if that moment reveals a hidden truth. It's not just about an arrogant man, but about an entire system that feels comfortable when someone is placed below its imagined position. The billionaire speaks loudly, interrupts, asks questions that don't expect answers. He doesn't want to listen. He wants to dominate. He wants to make it clear that, in that space, there is only one authority, his, and she remains there, standing, silent, her body erect, her hands relaxed, her gaze firm. There is no trembling, no rush to defend herself. This contrast begins to unsettle, because, in situations like this, the expected reaction is one, a hasty justification, an apology, a retreat. But none of that happens. She listens to everything as one who observes something greater than that specific moment, as one who understands that certain scenes are part of a longer journey, full of invisible backstage events and decisions that have not yet been revealed. The billionaire becomes emboldened by his own voice. He makes even more offensive comments, suggesting she should go back to where she came from, questioning whether someone let her in by mistake. The humiliation ceases to be merely verbal and becomes symbolic. It's a clear attempt to erase her presence there, to make her invisible to everyone. And it's impossible not to feel the growing resentment, because there are limits that, when crossed, reveal much more about the one who humiliates than about the one who is humiliated. The atmosphere changes, not for the better, but for the denser. The air feels heavy. Some people realize that things have gone too far, but the fear of challenging those in power prevails. And it is at this point that the question begins to echo in the minds of those watching. Why is she accepting this? What makes someone endure such explicit humiliation without reacting? The answer doesn't yet appear, but the tension grows precisely because something doesn't add up. She doesn't lower her head, nor does she confront. There's a disconcerting calm there, a calm that doesn't stem from submission but from control, as if behind that silence there were a profound understanding of the impact that certain attitudes generate sooner or later. The billionaire, on the other hand, seems increasingly trapped by his own ego. He doesn't realize he's revealing himself, that each word spoken constructs a clear portrait of his mentality, his way of seeing people, the kind of decisions he makes when he believes he's on top. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this moment isn't just a scene of humiliation. It speaks to transformation, to how poorly managed power distorts the perception of reality. It speaks to mindset, to how some people confuse position with character and money with human value. This episode is a reflection of accumulated choices, of a journey where financial success wasn't accompanied by awareness. While he speaks, the woman observes. And, in that silence, something begins to reverse almost imperceptibly. The one who seems small is no longer her. The one who seems exposed is no longer her. The impact of that situation lies not only in the public embarrassment, but in what it awakens internally in everyone who witnesses it. Because deep down, many there know that what they are doing is wrong. They know they have crossed an invisible line, and this realization, even if belated, plants seeds that are difficult to ignore. The billionaire concludes his speech with a final phrase, laden with contempt, as if he had put a definitive end to that story. He believes he has won, that he has made it clear who is in charge, but there are times when the truth does not manifest itself immediately. It prepares itself. It organizes itself. It awaits the right moment to emerge with full force. And this is one of those moments. The silence that follows is not empty. It is an interval, a space where invisible decisions begin to form, where the real impact of that humiliation begins to take shape away from prying eyes, behind the scenes of power. Nothing ends there at that moment. On the contrary, everything begins to move. Before moving on, it's worth taking a moment to reflect. Because this scene touches on something profound. If this resonated with you in any way, write it in the comments. That makes sense to me. After that final contemptuous sentence, something curious happens. Nothing explodes. No one stands up. There is no argument, no sharp reply. What exists is a silence that doesn't ask permission to occupy the space. The woman remains there for a few more seconds, as if absorbing not only the words, but the entire atmosphere, the glances, the reactions, the absences. Every detail is registered with a precision that few perceive, because while many believe that silence is a sign of defeat, it can in fact be a profoundly conscious strategy. She doesn't rush to leave. She shows no hurry to explain herself. She simply adjusts her posture slightly, takes a deep breath, and calmly looks around. A look that carries no resentment but clarity. It's as if, at that moment, something internal is reorganizing itself. A silent transformation, a decision made without fanfare, the kind of decision that doesn't need to be announced because it carries inevitable consequences. Some are still whispering, others pretend to resume their work. The billionaire, satisfied with his own performance, no longer pays attention to her. For him, that scene is over. But that's precisely where the mistake lies. Because there are moments when the real impact doesn't happen on the main stage, but backstage. And she understands that very well. As she walks toward the exit, her cell phone vibrates discreetly in her hand. She glances at the screen for a brief second. She doesn't answer immediately. She puts the device away, takes a few more steps, as if allowing time to align with what needs to happen. This small gesture goes unnoticed by almost everyone, but it carries enormous weight. It's not an ordinary call. It's the kind of contact that changes directions, redefines journeys, and sets hidden truths in motion. Outside the room, she finally answers. The conversation is short, few words, a firm, controlled tone. There is no exaggerated emotion, only objectivity. Those observing from afar would never imagine that at that moment, important decisions are being set in motion. Processes that were dormant are awakened. Information that seemed irrelevant takes on new meaning. This is how real power usually operates. Far from the spectacle, close to the consequences. As she hangs up, she looks at the glass separating the hallway from the main office. For a brief moment, her eyes meet his. There is no confrontation, no explicit challenge, just a confident look, almost too serene for someone who has just been humiliated. That look carries something difficult to explain, but easy to feel, as if saying without words that this story is not over yet, that what was said in there will have a much greater impact than anyone imagines. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because this kind of silence reveals a lot about mindset. It reveals emotional maturity. It reveals an understanding of the right time. In a world that reacts impulsively, those who know how to wait tend to see further. They understand that reacting at that moment wouldn't change the structure of the problem. The real movement needed to happen on another level, where decisions are made and consequences are real. Meanwhile, the billionaire continues his routine, believing everything is under control. He doesn't realize that by underestimating someone, he has opened the door to his own downfall. He doesn't realize that the woman wasn't there by chance, that her presence was part of a larger journey, connected to past choices, contracts, silent involvements, and information that was never explicitly laid bare. The impact begins to take shape precisely where he isn't looking. She, on the other hand, goes through the day with an almost disconcerting tranquility. He answers messages, attends meetings, observes numbers. Each action seems normal but carries intention. Nothing is done impulsively. Everything is done consciously. Because when you see the whole picture, small humiliations lose their power to hurt and begin to serve as confirmation. Confirmation that certain truths need to come to light. There is something profoundly unsettling about this kind of silence for someone accustomed to dominating. Through noise, they don't know it. But that lack of reaction is the clearest sign that something is being prepared, not out of revenge, but out of consistency, out of alignment between words and actions, between respect and responsibility. Time begins to work in her favor and against him. Meetings are rescheduled, documents reviewed, information cross-referenced. Everything happens away from the main stage, backstage where ego doesn't reach. And it is in this interval, in this space between what has been said and what is yet to be revealed, that the story gains depth, because the fall, when it comes, rarely gives warning. This silence is not empty. It is laden with meaning, with conscious choices, with a truth that has already begun to stir, even if no one there realizes it. And when this truth finally finds the right path to manifest itself, the impact will be impossible to ignore. If this part of the story resonated with you, write it in the comments. I'm on this journey too. 3 days pass. There are no public announcements, no headlines yet, no fuss. On the outside, everything seems to be proceeding as normal. The billionaire keeps his schedule full, continues to enter meetings with the same confident posture, the same firm tone of voice, the same certainty that he is in control. But there is something different in the air. Small delays begin to appear. Responses that once came quickly now take longer. Looks that used to be submissive become cautious. It's the kind of change that only those who understand the inner workings can grasp. On the morning of the 3rd day, an email arrives too early. It's not long, it's not aggressive, it's direct. It requests an immediate review of some strategic contracts. Then, a connection interrupts the first meeting of the day. Then another, and another. What was once routine begins to transform into noise, a noise that bothers, that distracts, that creates cracks in the feeling of absolute power. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because that's exactly how the truth usually emerges. It doesn't arrive like a sudden thunderclap. It infiltrates, it gradually occupies spaces, it becomes inevitable. While the billionaire tries to understand what's happening, decisions that no longer involve him begin to be made. Important meetings take place without his presence. Matters that previously required his approval now appear as pre-prepared statements. And then the revelation happens. Not on a stage, but in a closed room. Not with shouts, but with documents. He discovers that the woman he humiliated was no ordinary visitor. She wasn't a misplaced employee, she was the main investor, the silent force behind much of the company's growth. The ultimate authority who never needed to assert herself because she always acted behind the scenes. The owner of a decisive part of everything he believed he controlled. The information hits like a heavy burden, difficult to bear. Everything starts to make sense in a cruel way. Her silence, her firm gaze, the absence of reaction. It wasn't weakness, it was awareness. He was someone who knew his own position, his own journey, and knew exactly the impact that certain decisions would have when they came to light. The effects are immediate. Strategic contracts are suspended. Important partnerships are reviewed. Investors withdraw with surgical speed. Positions begin to be re-evaluated. His name, once associated with success and authority, now circulates accompanied by distrust. The market reacts badly to stories of arrogance, prejudice, and impulsive decisions. The reputation, built over years, begins to crumble in a matter of hours. He tries to argue. He tries to downplay it. He tries to control the narrative. But it's too late. Because when the hidden truth finds evidence, no discourse can hold up. The downfall doesn't come as an isolated scandal, but as a sequence of losses. Every decision made in the past returns now as a consequence. Every word spoken in that room echoes with a weight he never imagined. The woman, on the other hand, remains firm. She doesn't celebrate. She doesn't expose. She doesn't humiliate in return. Her stance remains the same, because the objective was never revenge. It was alignment, it was coherence, it was showing that real power doesn't need to shout. It simply acts, and when it acts, it transforms entire structures. This is the kind of turning point that redefines mindset. That lays bare how much attitudes reveal about character. That shows how the impact of humiliation can transcend time and manifest itself in unexpected ways. Her journey didn't begin in that office, and his downfall doesn't end on that third day. What begins there is a deeper process made up of revisions, silent losses, and a belated awareness of one's own mistake. As he watches the world he built slowly crumble, it finally dawns on him. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't persecution, it was choices. It was the decision to judge before knowing, to speak before understanding, to place himself above someone without knowing who that person really was. The transformation happens too late to avoid the consequences, but early enough to leave a mark. And it is at this point that the story gains even greater depth, because when the truth comes to light, it doesn't just reveal positions or shareholdings. It reveals who we are when we think no one important is watching. It reveals how we treat those we believe have no power. It reveals much more than just numbers. If this twist affected you, write it in the comments. That makes sense to me. After everything comes to light, what remains is not just the image of a powerful man falling or a woman finally recognized. What persists is something deeper, quieter, and perhaps more difficult to face. Because stories like this aren't just about money, positions, or companies. They're about behavior, about mindset, about the kind of decisions that shape destinies long before any visible results appear. The billionaire believed that power was about volume, that authority was imposed through fear, that respect could be demanded because of the position he held. And for a long time, this even worked. People fell silent. Doors opened. The system revolved around him. But this kind of power is fragile. It depends on the silence of others, on momentary submission, on the illusion of control. All it takes is for a hidden truth to emerge, for everything to begin to crumble. Women, on the other hand, never needed to announce who they were. They never needed to diminish anyone to exist. Their strength lay in the consistency between who they were and how they acted, even when no one seemed to notice. That too is power. A power that doesn't shout, doesn't humiliate, doesn't embarrass. A power that observes, understands, and chooses the right moment to act. And when it acts, the impact is profound, structural, impossible to ignore. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this difference isn't abstract. It manifests itself every day in ordinary settings, in simple relationships, in situations that seem too small to matter. The way someone treats those they believe to be unimportant says much more than beautiful speeches or impressive positions. Actions reveal destinies. They always have. How many times has the world seen people lose everything, not for lack of talent, but for excessive arrogance? How many careers have been interrupted because someone confused status with human worth? This story lays bare an uncomfortable truth. No one is above respect. It doesn't matter the wealth, the surname, or the influence. Life takes its toll, and it takes its toll precisely in the places where we believe we are protected. The most interesting thing is to realize that justice, here, didn't come as explicit revenge. It came as a consequence, as a direct result of choices accumulated over time. Each offensive comment, each look of contempt, each decision made without empathy was building, brick by brick, the scenario of their own downfall. Nothing happened by chance. The transformation wasn't sudden. It simply became visible. And perhaps that's the most important part for those who follow this story, because it doesn't ask you to admire characters. It invites reflection. It invites you to look inward and ask yourself, how do I act when I believe that no one important is watching? What kind of impact do my words generate? What kind of journey am I building with the decisions I make today? Money, position, recognition? All of that can change hands quickly, but character accompanies every step. It appears in moments of tension behind the scenes, in situations where it would be easy to choose the path of humiliation or inflated ego. And it is precisely in these moments that destinies are sealed, even if no one yet realizes it. This story leaves a feeling of justice, but also of warning, because it shows that true power doesn't need to prove anything. It is sustained by respect, by listening, by the awareness that every action generates an impact, and that impact, sooner or later, returns. And while this reflection continues to resonate, it's worth noting what all of this has awakened in you. Comment below. That makes sense to me. If you've made it this far, it's because this story resonated with you on some level. Perhaps it reminded you of a situation you experienced. Perhaps it sparked a dormant reflection. Or perhaps it simply confirmed something you already felt but had never stopped to put into words. And that's exactly why this space exists. If this type of content adds to your life, provokes you, and stays with you beyond the video, subscribing to the channel is a simple way to continue this exchange. Here, each story is designed to generate real impact, not just a few minutes of distraction. If you feel like it, leave a comment saying you made it to the end. You can write something like, "This message was for me," or any phrase that represents what you felt throughout the video. Reading these messages creates a genuine connection and helps you understand how much this type of narrative makes sense to the person on the other side of the screen. And if, at any point in this story, you felt that silent identification, that "this touched me," liking the video is a way to acknowledge that connection. This simple gesture strengthens the channel and allows more stories with the same care to reach other people who also need to hear them. There's a video over here that complements this topic and delves even deeper into this reflection. Click and continue reading it.